Every lineman knows there's risk in this trade. And in the back of their mind, every spouse of a lineman knows it too. Most of us hope that phone call never comes. But for Dominic and his wife, one day it did. The call that changed everything. Today's conversation isn't just about an accident. It's about the recovery, resilience, how it affects the family, and what happens when life changes in an instant. Something that a lot of us take for granted. Check it out in this full episode. Let's talk about it.
You're listening to PowerGridTalks, from the bucket trucks to the boardrooms. I'm your host, Tom Williamson, a journeyman lineman with over 15 years in the trade. Here we bring you real stories and real conversations from the field to the executive suites of the electric utility world. It's about the people who keep the power flowing and the grid strong. Let's get to work.
So out here today talking to Dominic and Naiane. How are you guys?
Good, you?
I'm good. I'm good. So we're going to kind of talk about how you got started in the trade and how old you were and that kind of stuff at the beginning. And then we'll get into the rest of your story as we go. Is that fine?
Sure. I don't remember how old I was, but yeah, that's fun.
Okay. All right. So how old were you when you got into line work?
Early 20s.
Did you always want to do it, or was it something just found you?
I was going to college here in Big Rapids
Okay.
for engineering.
Nice.
Yep.
And decided engineering was not the way to go?
I had one semester left, and it was summer break. My little brother's like, hey, you want to go to power lines for this summer? And I forgot why I had a CDL, but I already had a CDL. I was like, sure. So we signed up on the Bucks, and they brought me on with Inco's and McCoy
Okay.
back in 04.
Okay. All right. So you started out on the outside construction and you stayed there the whole time?
Yep.
Okay. Nice. Did you know about line work at that point? Were you guys together at that point?
No.
So when
Not
you met
yet.
him, was he already doing line work?
He was.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he had just tapped out maybe like a year or so.
Okay. So when he told you that, did you know what it even was?
No. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think because we started dating online.
Okay.
You know, that was like the peak of online dating.
Right.
And he told me he was a lineman. I was like, oh my gosh, what team do you play for?
Yeah,
And he was
right.
like, girl, no, that is not it.
I think that's pretty common though, don't you?
I think it is. So he was already a lineman and had been tapped out. He had an apprentice at the time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So the reason we wanted to sit down and talk was because Dominic approached me at a conference this year and was telling me how he had an accident in the industry and how it kind of changed the trajectory of his career a little bit and how he thought about things. So I thought it'd be a cool story to get to everybody, right? So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So how long had you been doing line work before the accident happened?
When was it? 2015?
20.
So 11 years?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how would you describe yourself as far as the industry goes? What was your outlook on it?
I was a tramp.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Travel the country
All over.
wherever you had to,
Yep.
made the biggest money you could.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
And was that something that you were good with?
Well, because our kids were so little, for a good portion of his tramping, if you will, we were able to go with him.
Right.
So,
that's cool.
yeah. So though I think the very first time we did it, I was at my family's house in New Jersey, and he ended up getting a job in Buffalo, New York. So he drove to New Jersey, picked me up with our 8-month-old son, and then we rented an apartment in Niagara and stayed there for, I don't even know how long.
That's cool.
For a few months,
Right.
you know, and my thought process was, as long as the kids aren't in school, why not do it together? You know, it gives the kids an opportunity to see the country, and it keeps our family together as much as possible. And then we can revisit that when the kids are in school.
So Dominic, tell me this part. So you've been kind of the tramp lineman up to that point, right? What was the tramp life like by yourself versus with your family with? Because I've talked to a lot of guys that when they're out there traveling the country, you're working long shifts, you're tired, you basically go to work, go to your hotel, fall asleep on the couch, or go have some beers and fall asleep, and then get up early and go do it all again. And it kind of feels like you're by yourself a lot. When you just get, I don't know, tired, lonely, whatever. Did you feel that way?
No, because you're with your homies, right? You're with your
Okay.
You're
So you
with
had a
your
good crew of
buddies.
guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you're a lineman. They're your extended family.
For sure.
And then, like Naiane said, she met me a couple years after I topped out, and I didn't start really. I had some bigger jobs before we got married, but then I didn't really start getting on the hardcore tramp wagon until after. Like we were on a job in New Jersey,
Yeah.
and it was 710s, and I got pissed, and I called her up. I was like, "Pack up the camper." She's like, "Where are we heading to?" Like, L.A.
Okay.
And so we went home for like a month, and then took off and went from Jersey to Michigan, and then, left again and went to LA for almost a year.
Literally across the country.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that point, then we had 2 kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, we sold our house, left it before we even closed on it. So we didn't even have a house when we went to New Jersey, which worked out great for me because I was only 45 minutes away from my parents' house.
Okay.
So he's working ridiculous hours. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to spend like 2 days there, come back, hang out with him for a couple of days. So it gave us that opportunity too. We bought a house from Jersey here. We signed on it from Jersey. So we just kind of moved all of our stuff from storage to the house, stayed for, maybe 2 months.
Did you buy it sight unseen? You go off pictures?
No,
No,
we
we
did
didn't.
see
You
it.
came and looked at
We
it.
had
Okay.
seen it already, but they weren't getting any bids on it, thankfully. And it was one of those houses that you get in and you fall in love with it. Now, I'll tell you, there's nothing crazy. It was a small house, but I don't know what it was. I walked through the front doors and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love it. And I wish we could still have had it, but that's okay.
We outgrew it.
Yep.
Now we have 4 kids. So,
Now you're outgrowing about everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's kind of fast forward to the day of the accident, right? Do you remember the day of the accident?
No.
Okay. Let's start with this. Walk us through what happened accident-wise, or what you've been told happened accident-wise, and then we'll go back to day of. How about that?
So we were doing a triple circuit transmission line. I think it was 138 up top and then double circuit 46.
Okay.
Right here in Michigan. And we're getting prepped for doing rolling stops for crossing I-94.
Right.
And it was 336 sad sack, so we're using double rigging. And the guys were up there hanging the rigging, getting it all prepped, because I can't remember if it was, that day we're doing the stops or if it was the next day or whatever. And I don't know if you've done sad sack, when you got the Beckies hooked to the grips. I've always done the same thing. I leave the Beckies drooped over the bucket so they're not all wilded up, and I can just grab it and hang it. They're at the static, and I caught the top arm is what I was told. And I pulled the rigging out of the bucket, it's 41 pounds.
Okay, so let's go over that real quick. So the rigging was hanging over the edge of the bucket to keep it organized, so you guys can just grab it and go,
Yeah.
like almost everybody does, right?
Yep.
So as they're booming up, that rigging caught the static?
The top arm.
Okay. The
So
top
right
arm.
below the static.
Okay. All right, and then at that point, pulled it out of the bucket,
Put it out of the bucket on a 100-foot pole.
and you were under it.
I was on the ground.
Okay.
And it was a tight setup. We were it was a concrete factory or whatever. They built, the K rails or Jersey rails.
Yep.
So we had 2 125s HLs in there. So that's a big footprint, right? 100-foot pole, 110-foot pole, whatever it was. And the Jersey barriers are all piled up there. So it was already tight. And then the guy that is a good buddy of mine, I talk to him just about daily still. He's a loud lineman. So when he yells, you can hear it.
Yep. Everybody knows it.
Yep. He yelled it. We didn't hear it till the third time he yelled it because of the traffic.
Oh, man.
And then
It's a busy highway.
it was I.
Trucks are loud when you're down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
and that's right by I-94.
Yeah.
So 80 miles an hour, nonstop traffic. It ricocheted off the tower. When they yelled headache, we all took off running. I never looked up. And talking to the guy that saved my life, I still work with, at the company I'm currently working at now. He's like, you ran. He's like, you stopped. He's like, you ran like 20 feet and stopped it. Went with your head.
Oh, my God.
So had you stayed where you were,
I heard us
you
stayed where I
probably
was,
would have been fine.
I would have never,
Gotten hit.
or if I would have taken one more step. So it's 41 pounds from 100 feet.
So hard hat on still.
Oh,
Yep.
Okay.
I have the hard hat at
So
home.
that was a big difference.
yeah. Had he not had it, it would have gone back to front, split his head completely in half.
So what do you think actually hit you? Was it the grip?
It was one of the grips, is what I was
Which
told.
big transmission grips are
Well, it's 336, so what is that, a 40 grip, I think, but,
okay. So not crazy.
Yeah, but from 100 feet.
Right.
100 feet with the other Becky and the McKissick and the Shackles, it's 41 pounds is what they weighed it out on the scale
Okay.
afterwards. And what's maximum velocity, 60 feet, so it wasn't going any faster.
So dropped
Right.
you in your tracks.
Oh, yeah.
This then went face first, and then
Like a tree.
the guy that saved my life is qualified first responder, and that's you and I have CPR first aid, but we
We're
don't,
hoping to never use it.
Right.
and we don't know how to use it. And
It's not the same.
No.
He went right to work on me. He's like, and you were horrible. He's like, your mouth, your nose is packed full of mugs. We're in the transmission right away. He's like, I had to scoop all the crap out just to give you. CPR first aid.
Luckily, he knew to do that, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he knew well enough to he'd give me CPR first aid. And I don't remember how many compressions he went. And then he went to straight chest compressions. And that's what brought me back. Then they said I started yelling and moving around. And I was so done, like I wasn't even bleeding until he got my heart going again. And then after he got me going again, then, you know, blood started flowing everywhere. I started screaming.
Yep.
I couldn't see. I was blind, like 100%.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he was able to call in Aeromed that met us right there. You know, he
Skipped ambulance
skipped the ambulance.
altogether.
He
So the helicopter came right to you.
caught in the care flight, yep.
Okay.
And there was a public building, like somewhere there, so they were able to get a stretcher right away. So, and again, this is from
Right.
probably Steve telling me or somebody telling me.
Yeah. It's not from him telling you.
It's not from him telling me, no.
Yeah.
Get him on the stretcher, and the helicopter like barely touched down. All the guys just threw him in, and they took off. So between him getting hit and being in the operating table was exactly 55 minutes.
Wow.
And that made all the difference.
That's a pretty amazing response, really, if you think about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what part of the country are you in at this point?
Michigan.
So you're in Michigan.
Yeah.
It was in Albion, wasn't it?
So
Yeah, Albion, because he ended up going to Lansing for hospital.
That's
fairly
nice,
rural
Richard.
area, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So when you say he called the helicopter in directly, when he called 911, he told them, don't send an ambulance, send a helicopter, or do we even know?
He's a qualified first responder, so he might have a different phone number than 911.
Yeah, and
Okay,
it was something
okay.
to the effect
That's
of
pretty amazing.
like he was able to give his credentials and
Right.
told them the severity and said, we're going to need something bigger here.
Talk about stars aligning.
Right, and I think at the time he's a volunteer fire chief, so I mean, he knew.
Yeah, sure.
And
But,
a
I
bigger
mean,
alignment yet was when he got to Sparrow Hospital in Lansing. It was during shift change. So
Okay.
they had twice as much as everybody in the building because it was in the afternoon. And one of the best neurosurgeons in the state, if not in the country, just happened to have been there doing some paperwork
no kidding.
and took his case.
That's
And he could have been like, nope,
right.
I'm clapped out,
Right.
and and it's funny because he looks so much like Dominic, just like an older version of
Yeah.
Dominic. And he's like this big guy, bald, like super confident, like I got this. So between, Dr. Charles and Mr. Boyer, they saved his life.
Okay, so day of, do you remember anything that day, that
Nope.
morning? So that day's a complete wipe for you. What's the last thing you remember before this?
The day before, the lineman that dropped it on me, we're going on the right away picking wild asparagus, right?
Okay.
For dinner?
Yep.
And then we're staying in my camper. It's actually at my aunt's house, right, 20 minutes away.
Okay.
We're eating dinner, wild asparagus and venison, right?
Yeah.
And then I woke up in inpatient rehab weeks later.
Wow.
There's nothing.
Okay. So
And I couldn't tell you the timeline of when I got hit to when, I don't know.
yeah, yeah, anything could have happened in there, and you don't have a clue.
And I don't know if it was 3 weeks or 5 weeks because, my memory just started coming back.
Okay. So, Naiane, at this point, where were you when you got the phone call?
At home.
Okay. Kids are with you.
Yes.
One was
One
ready to
kid at
go.
this point.
Oh, we had 2 and I was 35 weeks pregnant.
So you had 2 kids and 1 on the way.
Oh,
Okay.
one
Okay.
almost here.
That's
Okay.
the only reason I was on that job because
Trying to make money. Okay.
no, we're in California and
Oh, you came back for that.
To have
It was
I
a California love
understand.
child.
I understand.
yeah.
Right. Okay. So, what's the first thing that went through your mind?
It was really weird because I don't take, well, now I take naps. Then
Yeah.
it was one of those like really eerie things. And now when I think about it, I try not to take a nap because it almost like, okay, all of these things are aligning and it reminds me of that day. So I have to like break it because I'm like, I can't have that. So both of the kids were napping. I am extremely pregnant. And I was so tired. And I remember I was like, I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to lay down. So then the kids were still, and I woke up and the kids were still napping and go downstairs. And I'll never forget this. It's super weird to remember those details. And I was like, I'm just going to eat a yogurt. And it was complete silence. And if you have toddlers,
There's never silence.
there's no silence. There's something burning somewhere. And I get a phone call from his general foreman. And his voice was so shaky, and again, also a pretty confident guy on the phone and happy-go-lucky. And he was like, hey, Naiane. And I was like, where is he? Like, I immediately knew. As soon as he said it like that, I'm like, where is he? And he's like, well, he's in, I'm actually not sure. All I know is that they put him on a helicopter and took off with him.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, well, is he alive? And he's like, I have no idea.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like, okay.
So you just start spinning at that point, right?
Oh, yeah, because I'm like, I don't know where he is. Like, where do I drive to? And at that time, we didn't have, like, how to keep, like, we weren't keeping track of each other on, like, Life 360 or anything. So I'm just like, okay, where do you begin? Like, where do you begin?
Yeah.
You know?
What
And
do I call
like,
now? What do I do?
right. So somebody else calls me and then, like, shows up on my door because they already knew about it and immediately drove to me.
Okay.
I forgot who it was. Of course, you don't know that. But it was like somebody I think you grew up with, but is also a lineman or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
And they're like, I can take you to him because by the time he got to me, he already knew where he was.
Okay.
But then I'm calling my brother-in-law and sister-in-law because they lived down the road from me. And I was like, truly the only family that we had at the time that lived so close. Everybody else is in a different state pretty much. Mm-hmm. We're trying to figure out like where to go, where to stay. The company's trying to put us all in a hotel because I can't just go and take the kids because I can't take the kids to the hospital. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we had a troop rallying around us. Thank goodness. I didn't have to drive because my brother-in-law drove us and the kids. So like it was truly like pack as much as you can because we don't know how long we're going to be gone. And then we had friend/neighbor come in to be able to take care of the dogs. And it was probably what's Lansing from here? An hour and a half, hour 45?
2 hours.
2 hours. The longest 2 hours of my life up until that point.
Because at that point, you still don't know his condition. You just know where he's at
No,
at this
I
point.
just
That's
know where he is. He is at Sparrow Hospital in Lansing. Here's the hotel that you guys are going to be staying at because it's 5 minutes away. And go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about you. 2-hour drive. You get to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Walk in. Do you get to see him? Or do you wait longer? Do you remember?
I don't even remember.
Such a blur.
It is.
Okay.
I think I did get to see him that night, and I'm pretty sure I spent the night there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Okay.
I did get to see him, and by that point, he had already been operated on,
Okay.
and his head was all wrapped up. He had tubes coming out of everywhere, and he had more screens surrounding him than a sports bar.
From all the machines he's hooked
From
up to,
everything
yes.
that he's hooked up to.
So it's all the beeping and
It's
machines
beeping,
moving.
it's going, things are moving. He's got tubes in his mouth, in his nose, in his skull. Like,
Did it even seem real at that point?
no.
Like at that point, I'm sure it's just like, this can't be my husband. What's going on? This can't be right.
Right. Like, it was weird because he was almost looked like he was mummified because, again, they like wrapped up his head from his injuries. And yeah, it was wild.
So looking back on it from now, what would stick out as the worst part of that day?
Of that day?
That day, the worst thing that day. What sticks out as being the worst thing? Was it the phone call?
I think so. And not knowing his condition.
That time period right there. Of just,
Oh, that was
my
awful.
gosh. Okay.
That was awful because I'm like,
imagine.
you don't know, like, do you scream? Do you cry? My kids are sleeping. Can't ring the scream and cry. I don't want to scare them.
Right.
You know?
Because they're not going to understand it anyhow.
No, they have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So how long were you in the hospital, Dominic? Do you know?
No.
How long was he
No.
in the hospital?
weirdly enough, I think 2 to 3 weeks
Okay.
before he moved into inpatient rehab in Grand Rapids. So that was a little bit closer to home.
Okay.
It was only an hour instead of 2.
All right. So what's the first thing you do remember after the accident?
It's still broken up, right?
Right.
I remember one day laying in the bed in inpatient rehab, and I didn't have the wrap anymore. I remember picking, because I have a gigantic dent now that holds water in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I pulled this scab off the back of my head that was like crazy thick.
Yeah.
I was like, huh, where'd this come from? Right? Yeah. My memory is so broken.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, even if it wasn't, you know, and now it's been almost over 11 years now, right? May 14th, 2015.
Yeah.
But I was in the inpatient rehab I was at. Where was that? Hope Network.
Mm-hmm.
It was for a very severe
Mentally handicapped
people.
Okay.
And I was like, what am I doing here? I was like, because there's some weird things going on, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't know how handicapped he was.
Right.
You know?
I'm
Well,
like,
did the doctors even know at that point?
no.
No.
Because a lot of that, nerve damage and all that stuff, they don't
Yeah.
know that till after the fact.
We knew for a fact that a portion of his brain was dead. That was not going to be coming back.
Okay.
So I'm a brain dead lineman.
Yeah. Fitting in with the crowd.
Yeah.
So
I-
that much we know.
If you do a CAT scan, I always hit my left hemianopsia. And there's like a dark gray matter. And that part's gone.
Okay.
That controls per your vision cortex.
All right.
So I'm now, both eyes I'm part blind. There's nothing there. Like it's called a right field cut. So if you cut your eye into, 4 pies, and I've done multiple vision studies where you got to look at a pin, and if you look outside of when you click, it catches you. So you can't cheat. It's a perfect pie. So if I'm looking at your eyes right now, like I can see my hand, now it's gone. Now it's back. So and they're like, that's never going to come back. And then for the longest time, I couldn't smell. And it was her mom that caught it because I always had a very good sense of smell. And I think her mom's the first one that noticed it.
Yeah, she was like, Dominic always, because this man, he might have well been from the Caribbean because he truly showers for fun. It's a sport. So he'll get up and shower in the morning, and then in the middle of the day he got sweaty, he'll shower again, and before he goes to bed, gotta shower again. So he always smells good, and he has this weird missing gene that doesn't allow him to have body odor. I mean, one should be so lucky.
No, that's a legit thing too.
So then it was something about him. I don't know if it was his beard or something on him. And my mom's like, Dominic usually smells really good. And there's no way he hasn't smelled himself yet. So I was like, interesting. Because, the way he smells is the last thing on my mind.
Right. There's so much stuff going on. It's
Right.
crazy
I'm
how
like,
stuff
he's
just
alive,
surfaces.
and he's acting like a complete toddler. And he has the memory of a freaking goldfish. So, but yeah, and then we're like, oh my gosh, you lost your sense of smell. I'm like, this is great, which means you're going to change all of this new baby's diaper.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I lost that for a while, and it wasn't like a huge curse when I went back to work and you go to Porta John, it's 9 degrees. So I was like, yeah. And then it came back.
Okay.
But I mean, there was years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been able to smell now maybe 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's not as good as it was.
Right.
But I could at least walk into the house and be like, oh, I can smell food cooking or
Right. Or a certain candle burning or something like that.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
He used to say, I miss being able to smell your hair.
Right.
He's like, I can't smell it anymore. It's like, I know you smell good, but I can't smell it.
But it's wild the stuff that we do every day
Yeah.
that we don't realize until it's gone. That,
Yeah.
man, that's so awesome, right? Yeah, I can't imagine not being able to smell my wife's hair or the lotion she uses or anything like that.
Or the
Right.
food
Right.
being cooked. Because
Sure.
forever he would get home from work and be like, you haven't started dinner yet? And I'm like, yes, I have. You can smell it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the extremely pregnant Naiane and how all of that went down.
Yeah.
Was he recovered and good before you had the baby?
No.
So you had the baby, he had no clue?
He did. So the doctors were like, at best, if he's even awake at that point, because he was in a coma, mostly, I think, medically induced. So he would be comfortable. It would have to be via Zoom or something, because there's no way he's going to heal enough to be able to be at the birth.
Oh my.
There's no way. So, and I mean, at one point he had no idea. He forgot my name. He forgot our daughter's name. The only name he knew was my son's, and he would call my daughter Little Rascal. He thought, so one of his little brother had passed away. So he would ask for his little brother, and is Luke bringing Naiane later, because he had a completely different accident when I was pregnant with our first son.
Okay.
And Luke and I would go to the hospital and see him, or go to the rehab and see him all the time. So he was kind of still connecting that.
Okay.
I was like, boy, we have a lot to tell you. And then he forgot I was pregnant. And it was weird because he would come to and then fall back, come to and then fall back. I think the worst part for sure was the one day that I chose, but everybody was like, you need to rest. You need to go to the hotel and like take a shower and sleep on a bed, not on the hospital cot. I did that, and he had a grand mal seizure. It was like the worst thing ever, and we didn't know why he was having a seizure. Was it because he got hit really, really hard on the head with something, or is it because he's having a stroke and his brain is herniating and he's not going to come back from that? You just don't come back from that. So I watched this big confident guy, his neurosurgeon, go from, yeah, we got this, he's on the road to recovery, we just got to watch the next few days, to he was wilting in the waiting room at like 11 o'clock at night. Like, I got jolted out of bed. Dominic had a seizure. We have to go to the hospital. I'm looking for pants.
Right.
I mean, I had pants on, but I was like, let me put some jeans on. And
Right.
they're like, we don't have time for jeans. Like, whatever you are wearing is how you have to show up to the hospital. So that became the longest several hours to wait and see, did he herniate, or was it he just got hit in the head really, really hard?
And now you're
And
thinking-
thankfully, that's what that was.
Right. And
Yeah.
now you're thinking, why wasn't I here?
Yes.
Right. All
Yeah.
that. all
Because
that
I'm like,
stuff.
I could have
Guilt
caught
part.
it earlier because his brother was with him. His other brother was with him. And he was like, yeah, all of a sudden he's like blowing bubbles in his mouth. And so there was no like great jolt. It was just like, hey, nurse, he's blowing bubbles in his mouth. And that was a seizure. But it was awful. So it was just because we kept putting him up and down and up and down. And that built so much pressure in his brain.
Okay.
So
And they never did a stint, right?
they did one down below to keep the fluids draining.
Okay.
They needed another one. So when I
it
get to
wasn't
the
letting enough
hospital,
pressure.
I'm running, me and all of my pregnant self, down the hall. And I was about to get in his room. And when I tell you there's people spilling out of his room, and the nurse clocks me and she's like, because that's when they were drilling a hole in his skull right up here
I could
to
not
put
imagine
another.
walking into the room for that.
I would have been, honestly, the way I was processing everything, I would have rather have been there.
Yeah.
But nope, I had to sit in the waiting
I
room.
bet that was a conversation between you and the nurse at that point, right? Like,
Well, I know why she did it, right? Like, at the end of the day, that not everybody can handle that.
right.
And she was watching out for the fact that, hey, this lady is visibly about to give birth at any second here. And there's enough stress. So obviously she's protecting my well-being, and I respect that.
Right.
You know, and at that point, the nurses were pretty much the same. So weirdly enough, you build a relationship with them in a very short amount of
You
time.
basically lived with them, right?
You
were there all the
do.
time.
You do. And they were so kind. I mean, I cannot, they were angels, truly.
Okay. Just can't wrap my head around some of that stuff, right? Until you go through it, you can't.
Yeah.
Nobody should go through it.
No.
So did the accident change the way you look at life, Dominic?
Yeah, I mean, now I look at it through, 3/4 of a vision, right? So,
Like literally.
well, your family is always first, and my family has always been first with me. If you ask guys that worked with me pre and post,
Sure.
I was the foreman, I was the lineman. If you can keep up with me, you're garbage, right?
Okay. All right.
If you were on my crew, you can keep up with me.
Yep.
I'd lay you off to somebody else.
Yep.
And I remember the guy that dropped the grip on me, we were on a transmission job. It was only like 2 years later. And an apprentice left a chainsaw in the back of my crummy. And it snowed. And he looks at me like, Dominic, you've changed. Like, that was you 2 years ago. You would chew that apprentice's ass, and now you just shrugged your shoulders. I looked at him and was like, it's just a chainsaw.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't need to blow up on every little thing anymore. And once you get that perspective,
Sure.
it mellows you out. I think being on the field, being on the crew, I've really mellowed out compared to where I was.
And some of that happens over time anyhow, but some of it happens
It's
from
sped up.
traumatic events too.
It sped that point up from my career, right, to slow me down.
I bet.
But I mean, you could still go out there and rate. I was the lineman that, if you're going to clip, I'm going to clip faster.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to climb, I'm going to climb fast. That's the mentality that I was raised with.
Yeah. Set that standard.
Yep.
Let's go. You're not working hard enough, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can relate to that. That's how it was when you started at the truck.
Yeah.
It was just that way. What would you say matters more today than it did before the accident? Is there something that you're like, man, I focus on this way more. This matters way more to me now than it did before.
I spend a lot more time with my family more now than I used to.
Sure.
And I'm not going to see if that I've been in management now for,
Okay.
years since the accident.
Okay.
So it gives me more time. Like now, if I leave on a storm, I'm gone for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, I miss you so much, miss the kids.
Yeah.
Where like I was in Puerto Rico and she was pregnant with baby number 4 the whole time.
Again.
I was gone for 8 months in Puerto Rico. I flew home for a week and a half and then 8 months.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could do that again. I'm sure I can.
Sure.
Because, that's what we're bred to do, right, as linemen. But it gets harder, right?
Well, and a lot of people don't realize in our industry, that work-life balance is hard to do. If you want to be good at your job and do what you think you're supposed to do as a lineman and all of that stuff, you've got to make some hard choices. And a lot of times work gets picked over family, unfortunately.
Right. And that's every time, like when I said I was like a hardcore tramp, like the whole time we've been married, she's never said no to anything. And
Of course.
I just say one time.
one time I was, I literally just got home from Puerto Rico. I was GFing in Indiana. I got a phone call to go to Saipan.
Okay.
And we just had baby number 4 like a couple months prior.
Yeah.
And I asked her, joking.
So
was
I
like, "Hey,
said
can go?"
no.
I was like, sure, you can go. And then I'm on the phone. She's like, who are you on the phone with? I was like, my buddy. I was like, I got to be in Colorado in 2 days to go clear out of the books, to go to Saipan. She's like, no, we just had baby number 4. It's like, you were just gone for 8 months. You're not going. I was like,
That was the only time.
That's the line.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only time.
Saipan.
But like, she's been great with that part of it. Like I was GFing a job in New York and I got pissed and I laid myself off. I've done that a few different GF jobs. And I was like, I'm going to ride the books for a week. If I don't get a good call in a week, I'm going to California. I'm a very impatient guy, so a week turned into like 3 days. I was like, hey, I got a foreman's job out in California.
Yeah.
She's like, when you leave, and it's like tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., gone. And she's like, okay.
So let's circle back to the accident, right? You went back to do line work after the accident.
Yeah, I was off work for 5 months.
So you were off work for 5 months in between there. What was that first day back like? Were you hesitant to go back? Were you nervous?
I went back to a crew for the company I was working for, and I was local, so I didn't have to travel. And I can't make this up. They were up in the air, I was on the ground, and they dropped a grip.
Oh man.
And me with my
Flashback.
yeah, and me with my
Dark
my
sense
sarcasm.
of humor.
Yep.
I was like flashback, so I took off running, down the right away. And the one thing to get used to is being part blind. Right, if you're up in a hot pole like a triple buck, and it was weird for me too. The whole back of my head now was out. My whole back of my head's out titanium. It's a bunch of. It looks like a jigsaw puzzle of titanium plates. And I remember I was up at work in a triple buck somewhere, double buck, whatever it was, and the gut slid. And you're taught as lineman, trust your tools. And anyway, I bumped the phase at the back of my head. I'm like, oh shoot.
Yep.
I'm like, bucket's good. And the guy's like, you say? Like, no. I was like, I'm half blind, man. Like, it slid on me. I didn't see it.
Yep.
I was like, so you got to adjust to that, right? But
Well, not only that, your crew has to adjust to that, right?
Yeah.
That's communication. You've got to talk to your guys. They've got
Right.
to talk to you. You guys have to understand where you're at and what's going on.
yeah. So, no, it took a while to get used to that.
I'm sure.
Like I was doing a fly job a few years later with a guy. We're doing skid transfers. Like, hey, dude, if it looks like I'm going to miss the tower, let me know. He's like, why? I was like,
Because I'm going to miss the tower.
I'm half blind, man. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, it looks like I'm going to miss this. Let me know, please. He's like, what the hell, man? He's like, why are you doing this? Because they're paying us.
Yep.
Like, duh.
But it gets in your blood. Once you
Yeah.
start doing line work, you
Yeah.
just love doing it, right?
Well, and if you want to go back to like inpatient rehab, I had a neuropsychiatrist, Dr. Martin. And that home network was like Naiane said, people that were severely traumatized, which I was.
Mentally handicapped.
But I didn't-
For whatever reason.
Right.
But I didn't realize it, right? And I remember telling him, I was like, he's like, you're never going to do line work again.
Yeah, you're going to have to reinvent yourself.
was like,
You're
you
going
have
to
to
have to
use-
find something else.
Go back to finish your college degree because I had 1 semester left. Like, you're not going to be able to operate at that capacity.
There's no way you're ever going to go back to that.
And
How'd that feel?
I was like, I know how to do 2 things well. I was like, I know how to build power lines, love my wife. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And, we had a bunch of naysayers. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
People would correct me if I'm wrong. Like, Naiane, they tell me, what are you going to do with him anymore? Why are you going to stick with him? Because now he's this capacity. go find a new husband. You're young,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And then I had my neuropsychiatrist tell me I was never going to do it again. And, just like any lineman, I'm stubborn.
Yeah. So that fueled your fire a little more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and then I went on to bigger, better things, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about that because Naiane's mentioned a couple times that you're pretty confident and pretty driven, right? So how did it feel when they're telling you that you're not going to be able to do what you love doing anymore? Did you just immediately be like, watch this?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, right? It was like, guys.
I'm pretty sure he laughed because I was there for that conversation. I'm pretty sure he laughed at him.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, that's funny. And mind you, this conversation is being had very much still in inpatient rehab. There's no end in sight of when he's going to leave. He still has his neck brace on.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, okay.
My memory at inpatient rehab, like, if you came in that day to see me, I'm like, Tom, thanks for seeing me. I haven't seen today. I haven't seen in a long time. You're like, yeah, I've been here twice today.
Yeah.
I could remember.
He would call me every single day and say, why don't you come to see me? You haven't been here in weeks. And I said, honey, I was there yesterday.
Oh my goodness, that breaks your heart.
Yeah. But I knew,
Right.
what was going on. So I just made sure he was calm because the last thing you want for somebody with a head injury is to raise his blood pressure.
Right.
And in the hospital, when he had, he would get so worked up depending on what was going on. The nurses would call me in so I can calm him down. And I didn't have to say anything. I just had to touch him and say, hey, I'm here. And then you can watch all his numbers roll back down. And sometimes it would be like, she's the only one that can go in.
You're his person.
Yeah.
Right.
Every single time. So I'm like, it's okay. I'll be right there. And I think it was it Caleb's birthday? Because both of our boys are in June. So Caleb wanted enchiladas for his birthday. So I was like, all right, we're going to go celebrate with Dad. So I spent all morning cooking and I bought a cake and I did all the things and I packed everything up and I took it down to Grand Rapids, drove it down. Now I was so tired, but I was like, we're having a birthday with your dad, and we brought him down. And then the next day, you haven't been here in a couple of weeks. And I was like, oh, I know. I've just been so busy.
I don't remember that part.
You just had to entertain the fact that he had no concept. He's like, I think I'm ready to leave. I'm like, oh, what makes you think that? I'm like, well, how about we see where your vision's going to go, how your memory's going to go. And I would love to have, bring you back home. And he was like, oh, my vision is just fine. I was like, oh, really? What time is it? And there was a clock on the opposite side of his room and anybody could see and read it, right? He was like, well, it's 8:79. And I was like, really?
That's awesome.
8:79. I'll be darned. I'm like, that's new.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. I was like, I think, we'll keep visiting you. It's going to be fine. But yeah, it was just
So what
adventures.
What ran through your mind when they're telling him he can't go back to line work? Were you on the, oh yeah, watching side of it? Or were you on the, oh my gosh, what are we going to do side of it?
I was half and half.
Because he didn't know how bad he was hurt at that point still.
No,
right? And
no.
you watched the whole thing.
Correct.
So,
yeah, I had no idea. I started looking for jobs, but I'm like, who's going to hire a 37-week-old pregnant lady? And then whatever jobs I'm going to do, I have to take into consideration that I don't know how handicapped he's going to be.
Right. How much care that's going to take.
Is he going to be able, can I work and is he going to be stable enough that he can stay with the kids?
Yeah.
I didn't mind doing that.
Yep.
But I need to know that he was going to be able to successfully take care of our children, especially a newborn.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'm looking for stay-at-home jobs, and those are hard to come by. Sure. So yeah, I did find one. Not that it was going to support us by any means. Our lives were going to be drastically changed financially. But I don't know. I never really lost hope, which is weird to say because you feel like your whole life is crumbling, but not at the same time, just because, I don't know. I just didn't despair at the time.
You kind of lean on your faith a little bit, right?
Oh,
Something
100%.
Something just tells you it's going to work.
Honestly, we never lost hope, but people around us did, I think.
Did, and if I ever,
yeah.
if I ever despaired was because of, and again, most of the people around us were absolutely magnificent. Yeah. We had our close friends that whatever we wanted, they would have been there. I came home to a spotless house. My sister-in-law cleaned my entire house, did all of my laundry. And I was so looking forward to coming home and doing that because that would have meant I could escape from all that was going on. And I was like,
normal.
great, now I have to sit on the couch.
You can be normal for a minute. Right?
Yeah. So, but I did have, you should get rid of his truck. You should, why are we talking about his truck? You should get rid of his dog. I'm like, this man comes home with no truck and no dog. We're going to have a problem.
No boat.
Yeah.
No boat, no nothing. Just hold on a minute. Let's pump the brakes and, see what we can do. Our community, here in Big Rapids, we're amazing.
That's awesome.
Again, between definitely our faith kept us going. Boy, did we pray over this man. Every waking second of the day. We had so many people praying for him, but for our family, for me, I was, could have delivered at any point with the stress. And thankfully, we held it together until our due date. But yeah, our community was absolutely amazing. And I can't imagine what we would have done without our family, definitely our faith, but our community was incredible.
You asked about that, about the due date. I didn't make it.
He did make it.
They took
yes.
me out of inpatient rehab. They drove me up there.
Yeah.
Had the baby, then they put me back in.
Yeah, we
inpatient
just
rehab.
needed a person that was designated just for him. I had a C-section, so that could sit with him because if something happened to him, the crew that was there, the medical crew that was there, was for me.
Right.
So somebody else had to be responsible for him.
And you remember it?
No.
So you were there.
I was there.
You look at pictures and people
I
tell
initially
you.
got photos, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember any of it, though.
That's wild.
But he didn't make it.
But
We snuck him out for, I think, 48 hours.
Okay. So how old are your other two kids at this point?
1.5 and 3.
Do they
3 or
remember?
4. Oh, yeah.
So how did they handle all that, not seeing dad, and what happens? How do you explain that to a 3-year-old?
Right. If I remember, it was one of those dad got hurt and he's in the hospital getting better. So the kids were not able to see him at all for probably 3 weeks.
Okay.
Until he went to inpatient rehab and it was a lot more kid friendly.
Gotcha.
And he had his own room. I mean, everywhere he went, he had his own room, but it was a lot less hospital-y.
Less machines, less
Yeah,
tubes.
right. There's no way I was going to let my babies
Yeah.
see their dad
Yeah.
hooked up. I mean, that was traumatizing enough for
And he wouldn't
an
want that
adult.
either.
No, not at all. No.
No, nobody wants to be seen in that state anymore. They have to be, right?
Correct. He did look really good once they took the wrap off his head. I was like, oh my gosh.
Surprisingly good.
Yes. I was like, that's attractive. And then his mom was so funny. She was like, Naiane, only you would look at your comatose husband and say how sexy he looks.
Feeding
Like,
tubes.
I'm sorry. For better or for worse, right?
That's awesome.
She said I was great at pulling the feeding tubes out.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, man.
I love that you guys can laugh about it and make jokes about it, right? Because it is part of your life at this point. I mean, no matter if you wanted it to be or not, it's there, right? So you said it was 5 months before you went back to work, right?
Yep.
And after that, did you continue traveling or did you stay pretty local after that?
Oh, I was gone.
Yep. So you kept traveling.
Yeah, I went back to the company I was working at, and then like I said, I was a hardcore tramp.
Yeah.
Did you go back? I thought you went back to a
I went to
different one.
Chicago.
With the same company?
No, different. I went back to work for the
was-
company I was working at, and then I got pissed on a drug, went to Chicago. And then after Chicago, I came back up here to Michigan, and after Michigan, I went to California.
I thought you were going to go because you were like, yes, we'll take you.
I did.
And then they're like,
No,
nope,
it's-
too much of a liability.
No, I went back to work there. That's when
Did
the grip
you?
go. Yeah. Yep. And then I got pissed.
No,
on drug.
after
Yes.
your accident?
Yeah, right here in Reach City.
Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he's no longer allowed to work for that company for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
One of them is the one reason I was like, if you ever work for them again, I will divorce you.
So
And he's like, what? I'm like, yep, I'm not doing that. They
Another
treated
hard
us
line,
like
right?
absolute trash.
Yeah. And that's horrible. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
And you hear that a lot when you talk to people who have been through some hard situations in the industry, really in any industry probably, right? But all of the legal stuff kind of takes over and they kind of quit treating you like a human being.
Oh, yeah. And it was from the very beginning, unfortunately. Like, I shouldn't be chased around in the hospital
Yeah, no. You've got
by
enough
somebody.
stuff to
No.
Yeah. And that's the part that a lot of people don't understand too. When this kind of stuff happens, the insurance companies, the lawyers, they will come to the hospital and they will find the spouse of whoever got hurt, and they will say, "Oh yeah, it's fine. Just sign this piece of paper. Oh yeah, let's talk about this right now."
Yep.
And from the human factor of it, that just drives me insane.
Yeah.
Like, step back, take a break, know your boundaries.
Yep.
Not the time, not the place.
Nope.
Right?
Not at all.
I wish hospitals would make rules where that couldn't happen or something.
Oh,
right?
I made a rule. I was
Good.
like, this individual, he can come here all he wants. He is not allowed to go into Dominic's room
Good for you.
at all.
Yeah.
Because just the thought of his name made not a whole lot raises my blood pressure, but the fact that he was just trailing me around in the hospital, and I'm pretty like laid back for the most part, trailing me in the hospital and wanted to chase doctors to give him some sort of a timeline. I'm like, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
Like, be human for like a split second here. I'm like, listen, my husband is in a coma. I don't know if he's going to live or die. I'm going to need you to get out of my face. Then I told every single nurse, I was like, you need to put in his chart, if this man steps foot in here, he is not to come to Dominic's room at all. Like, he wants to sit in the waiting room, by all means. Nobody's to talk to him, give him any information. First of all, they can anyway, but nothing. How's he doing? Don't worry about it.
It sucks you have to be that way.
It does.
So did you have anybody to lean on or talk to through that? Because in that moment, you have two things going on. I feel like I've never been in that situation, so don't let me put words in your mouth,
Yep.
right? But in my mind, you have two things going on. It's I know in my gut this isn't right, I'm not talking to them. And then you have oh man, should I be looking at that? Should I be signing that paper? Did you have both sides of that, or were you just dead set from the beginning?
Oh, I was dead set from the beginning
You
because
knew it wasn't.
No,
Okay.
I knew it wasn't coming from a genuine place. Like, even
for
him
you.
being there, I knew it wasn't coming from a genuine place. It was a place that he was just watching out for his own company, which I can understand that from a business perspective, right? But at some point, morals over money's got to rule, right? And I just couldn't put up with that.
There's some young apprentices out there listening to this podcast right now. What's one thing you tell them?
You only get so many chances, right?
Okay. Right.
This should have been it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, take everything for granted. We just onboarded some new guys, book 4 Grumman. And our safety lady is giving the spiel. This is on Monday, just, the other day. I was like, go to Dominic Duchon, GoFundMe. And she kind of looks at me, funny as it go. I was like, she pulls it up. I was like, that's me 11 years ago.
So she literally pulled up your GoFundMe page when you had your accident?
Yeah. And I showed this brand new in the trade.
Yeah.
Right off book 4.
Yeah.
Never seen a bucket truck in their life besides going down the road. I think my wife got a phone call 11 years ago, so now I was dead. I was like, that's me right there. I was like, nobody's going to push you this hard to have an accident. And there's preventable accidents, which we're all trained on, and then there's, freak accidents like mine was. Because I don't, the guy that dropped it, I don't blame him. I don't blame me for being in the hole. Like, I remember when I came back and I went back to that, that company I was working for, there's a lineman on the crew saying, it's your fault. You're in the hole. And we're on the ground, and the guy's up right now, and he's at the bottom of the hand line. He's like, look where you're standing, dude. I was like, you're at the bottom of a hand line. You're in the hole. Well, I have to be here. I was like,
And I had to be
I was
there.
like, what's the hole on 120-foot pole or 110-foot pole, whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah. More distance than what you actually had to do the job.
Right.
Right.
Like, the job I told you I was on was Jersey, and I got pissed. Those were 250-foot lattice towers.
Yeah.
You drop a 3-inch splice pole, that hole is 200 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. It could bounce anywhere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we try to mitigate the risk the best we can. But, you get one chance, so, use your head.
Right.
And I told those new guys, like, listen, it's like, you don't do or touch or do anything without talking to your former lineman on the crew. I was like, if you want to take a step, you ask them first. Like, I was like, it's real. Because, not only did Naiane get the call on me, I had to call a wife one time
Okay.
until her husband was getting airlifted off the job.
Man.
And she's like, is he alive or dead? I was like, I don't know. Like, when we put him on the chopper, he was still alive.
This was after you had your
After I had my accident, 4 years later, I had to make the same phone call. And I was sobbing, right?
Right.
Because she knew me from Bluetooth. Because linemen are very private people. We got on Bluetooth, everybody's going to listen to the wife talk.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
And she knew me, right? My wife got the call, I had to make the call. That's one thing I'll never do again.
That's rough. Same kind of question, different angle for you, right?
Okay.
So if you could give advice to any line wife out there
Okay.
that is in the industry, what would it be?
Trust your instinct. Keep a good relationship with, but feel like that's marriage advice across the board, right?
Sure.
Talking is super important. Communicating is super important. And it's more so for like the lineman, if anything, like let us know what you're doing, so we know where to start looking. Granted, his accident was different and there's no way he was going to call me. But like he said, linemen aren't very private people. So I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a truck full of linemen. So like names come to you, but don't be a snot, I guess. Like talk to the guys, because you never know if one of those guys are going to be the ones that are calling you. So now you built a relationship with the guys in the truck.
Okay.
Or, that's the guy that's like, oh, I got to call Naiane and let her know X, Y, and Z. So, just be present, I guess. And it's hard, right? Because so many of us, we have jobs, we have children, and we have our own crap we're doing. And then they have their stuff, you guys' stuff. Communication is key, I think. And we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are days, but
Well, you kind of looked at him out of the corner of your eye when you did that.
I don't see it. She's on my blind side.
he can't see me. That's why I'm sitting here.
Oh, strategic. I didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Everybody in this industry, you always see that close call and you talk about near misses. You don't want to be part of it, right? You don't want to be, and I'm lucky, blessed. Not many people to get to come back.
No kidding, man.
You know what I mean?
You're probably one of the luckiest people I've ever been in front of.
Right. And then I've been lucky to go from dying to where I'm never going to do line work again, where I've climbed the ladder at numerous companies.
Yeah.
Where I've been able to still operate. I think I had decent capacity, right?
Sure.
Unless I don't see it on my blind side. But I was very lucky, very fortunate, and these younger kids now, you got to be, you got to stay humble no matter how good you think you are. Because I thought I was great, right? Freak accident. I got the hard hit at home, it's in a box, still full blood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You'll have him forever.
Yeah, and that says in case of emergency, because on my hard hats I always write, ICE.
Yep.
Naiane with her phone number that's in that hard hat.
Yeah. Wow.
I put that on all my hard hats. With a Sharpie. So that's still there covered. I still got it at home. I need to, put in like a glass box, but the whole inside's still covered with blood. There's the hole on the back of it. If I put it on, I take an ink pen, and it goes right to where the.
It's so bizarre because the hard hat, it doesn't look like there was that much damage. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of an indent and made a crack, but it completely crushed the back of his skull. The impact radiated to the top of both of his ears. So he basically almost took completely the top off.
Two broken vertebrae in my neck.
Yeah.
And now I have a scar here in my neck somewhere. I had cervical arthroplasty done.
Yeah.
So my vertebrae were gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't find that out later till I was doing another Highline job because, why not go back to Highline? Yeah. And I'd call her up. I was like, my wrist would lock up like when you're dehydrated, your hand. And it'd be so painful, it'd put me down on my knees in the right away. And then, I was a foreman and my crew's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I can't move. I was like, I was in so much pain. And then I'd go back to Dr. Bill, the guy that did my operation. And he's like, this, either you got to do this or, a fusion. I was like, well, I'll do the cervical arthroplasty. So now I still got full range.
Yeah.
But now, there's nothing really physically holding
Your spine together?
my spine together anymore.
You have
it's a rubber disc. It looks like two timber connectors
Okay.
with a rubber disc between my vertebrae.
It's so wild.
And I have a photo of it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta do everything the hard way, don't you?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So much so that when we were pregnant, so every time he's had a bad accident, I was pregnant with one of the boys. I wanted to make him tough from the womb, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
So then when I was pregnant with our youngest, and he was like, oh, I want to go to Puerto Rico. I was like, oh, no. We're going to see your cousin who does 4D ultrasound. And I said, we're going to find out what this baby's gender is first. Because if it's a boy, I am going to wrap you up in bubble wrap and put you on a zero gravity chamber until this child comes out.
You're like, I'm not doing this
because you're
again.
not going anywhere. And, it was a girl. And
And then
I was like, all right, you may go.
I would video call her from the long line or the skid on the 500.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's good for her stress level at that point.
So,
Right?
and but like, you think linemen are tough. She's tougher, right?
Oh, I guarantee
She
it.
went through that with me. The whole time in Puerto Rico, I left. She was pregnant. I came back like 3 weeks later. We had baby number 4. Through the dead of winter,
Oh, man, that
So
was
she's-
exciting.
pregnant the whole time with horses and chickens and wintertime in Michigan.
Yeah.
I finally had to call somebody to plow my driveway because my my snow pants wouldn't shut. And my neighbors would drive by and be like, Naiane, why are you doing that? I'm like, because I have a 4-wheeler with a plow. Why am I going to call anybody,
Of course.
Until, I couldn't wear pants. And then I was like, okay, we need help.
Yep. Yep. I feel like you guys are pretty similar in that, right?
Oh, yeah. Like hard-headed,
Independent,
stubborn.
Stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty much a lineman thing for us anyhow, but
Yeah, right.
for it to line for you like that.
It's a
pretty
South
cool.
American
Yeah.
thing for me.
Okay. That's pretty awesome how you both are that independent and that stubborn.
Yeah.
So you mentioned being humble, and I want to touch back on that for a minute because I feel like our trade's getting to a point where that's disappearing. A lot of guys, especially early in the trade, think that they know it all, think that they're the best lineman out there, think they can do anything. They're Superman, right? And I know complacency is a big thing too, and everybody kind of gets so used to doing things that they keep taking shortcuts and it gets worse and worse. So what would you tell these younger linemen to kind of keep them humble? Because they need it.
You don't want to be on the receiving end of that phone call, right? And you don't want to be the guy making that phone call. Because now she experienced and I experienced giving the call. If you practice the 7 Ps, right? Plan to work your plan, proper plan, improvements, physical performance.
Yep.
And you have a good safety huddle with your guys. And you work your plan, every day you should go home.
But you've got to do that.
But you got to do that plan.
And you can't just check the box on it. You've got to actually make sure everybody understands the job, understands what their role is. If you don't know your role, you've got to ask a question.
Right.
That
Don't
kind of
be
stuff,
scared to ask a question. Like,
Yeah.
I'd give you examples, but like, just don't be scared to ask a question. Because the only dumb one you don't ask is that one.
No matter if somebody's going to jump down your throat or call you an idiot or whatever, it doesn't matter. That's way better than someone
At
having
least
to
you
call
asked.
your wife.
Right.
All right. So I got one question left for both. It's gonna be let's do Naiane first, and then we'll do you. Okay. So when people finish listening to this episode, and they're on their way home in their vehicle, what's one thought or one lesson you'd like to leave it with?
One thought. My gosh.
That's pretty deep, Tom.
It is. Honestly, because for me, that was the hardest part. Take care of your mental health. Whether you're the wife, whether you're the lineman, truly take care of your mental health.
Day in, day out.
Day in and day out, because throughout the whole process, right, I'm a very logical person. So like I can go through a stressful situation and like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like always choose the next best step, the next best option. And then you're literally taking it a minute at a time, an hour at a time, a day at a time. But the body keeps score. Actually, it's a great book, by the way.
Okay.
The body keeps score. And if you don't address those stressful situations, whether it be with your spouse or the stress you just went through at 35 weeks pregnant with 2 toddlers and not knowing if you're going to be able to put food on the table and a roof over your head, it's going to drive you bonkers. So the stress of it didn't come until after he went back to work. And then PTSD set in. And then now I'm a person that I cannot not be busy because I cannot give myself the space to think, because thinking hurts. So I have to be absolutely exhausted so I don't feel anything. So whether you address it when it happens or you address it later, your body is keeping track of that. that's trauma, and maybe it's harsh to call it PTSD, but it is.
Well, it is, yeah.
It's an extremely traumatic event. And whether it's that or quite literally anything, it could be something simpler than that. But taking care of your mental health, I think it's super, super important, and keeping good communication with your partner is key, and being honest with each other.
Okay.
For sure.
That's awesome.
That's hard to follow up.
No kidding.
All right.
That's why I've let her go first.
All right.
We put
So
on
now
the
you
hot
have
seat a little bit
something
now.
that we're nothing to work with, actually.
So, same question, Dominic. People are driving home. They just got done listening to this episode. What's one thought you want to leave them with, or one thing you want them to remember?
Stay out of the hole.
Yeah.
Don't die.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this trade's already tough enough, right? And then you have lawyers rewriting our safety books, and they're taking the trade out of the trade.
Taking the skill out of it.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of our accidents are now stemming from, where people don't, I got gloves on, I can go touch anything. Where like when we came up, I came up 11.4 kV off leather, dry coolant off a pole. And now you can't touch 120, 240 without class 2s.
Yep. I feel like they're training the industry for liability and litigation instead of training it for skill and
They're
knowledge.
taking the skill and the knowledge out.
Yeah.
Because when you came up, you could grab 480 and energize it. You didn't have to put yourself in series. This is the younger lineman and younger apprentice. Now, when I say younger, I mean like 5-year chopped out lineman probably. Don't know how to do that in leathers. So.
But then again, they're probably being taught that because, like liability and the way the rules are being written. And
Well, and a lot of these linemen these days, they don't have someone with 20, 25 years teaching them. They've got someone else that's got 1 year more experience
Right.
them
then
that's
they
teaching
do.
them.
Right.
So basically, it's like peers teaching each other.
Right.
I mean, when I hired in, all of my foremen had 25 to 30 years experience.
Right.
Every one of them.
Right.
There's a huge age gap now in our trade, right? And
Huge.
I think it was at the conference I met you at, they said there's already a 30% deficiency in linemen in the U.S.
That's a scary number.
And it's going to keep getting worse. Yeah. So, I mean, just stay humble and follow the rules, right?
That's it.
And ask.
Ask.
Perfect. I like it.
So I can go on days and days about our trade. That's a whole different podcast.
I guarantee it. That'll be our next episode. We'll do a round 2. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Guys, I appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much for meeting up with me and letting me come down here and talk.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's it for today's episode of Power Grid Talks, from the bucket trucks to the boardrooms. I'm your host, Tom Williamson. I want to thank you for joining me as we talk to the people behind the scenes who keep our grid strong. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to hit that subscribe button, give it a share, and leave a review so we can keep bringing more voices from across the utility world to the conversation table. You can also find us at PowerGridTalks.com. Until next time, stay safe and keep the power flowing.